A while ago, we were on our way back from a birthday party, and our kids, who were then 6 and 4, asked me very honestly and seriously, Mama, if we came out of your tummy, how did we get in? Initially, I was a bit taken aback and I didn't know how to answer. But then I realized as parents, we thought about this a lot, that one day this question would come. I just didn't expect it so early. I managed to answer as honestly as I could in an age-appropriate way. But it got me thinking, there are some so-called taboo topics that some of us parents grapple with answering. So I thought it may be interesting to explore this on this episode. On the show today, we meet a few parents to discuss when and how they address some so-called taboo topics with their kids.
There's a direct and clear correlation between parents having the talk with safer sexual behavior. If they're old enough to ask, they're old enough to know.
Sometimes taboo topics are kept hidden from children, not just because they may be awkward to share, but also in order to protect the child.
Fathers are not bad. There are some humans who are really horrible, and he was a terrible guy.
In some cultures, seemingly basic things like a girl-child's education and sanitation can be seen as taboo. We met a dear friend, Ingrid Stellmacher, who recently spoke at the UN, calling to redefine dignity and honor, and did a wonderful interview with Malala's father on the subject.
Education, of course, is like lifting a veil from somebody's eye. When you know something, you can't unknow it.
Today we have with us some wonderful people who are also parents and who are going to share their perspectives on how and when we talk about these so-called taboo topics with our kids. Ashish has just made his directorial debut with Sex Chat with Papu and Papa. And as he's got sex in his Aston, we're going to go straight to him with the sex question. Ashish, how did your son first bring this up with you, or did you bring it up first?
So it was one of these play dates, and the kids were playing and us well-meaning parents hanging out, and suddenly there's a nursery rhyme in play which goes head, shoulders, knees and toes and progresses to penis and vagina. And our hearts just popped into our mouths saying, oh my God, did I just hear that? And that's when we realized that why should it be even remotely awkward to have these conversations? And the first door that kids should be knocking to find out about things that are considered taboo should not be the internet. It has to be your parent. And that's where really it triggered in my head, and which is where Sex Chat with Papu and Papa happened, and hopefully just gets the conversation started.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I've watched an episode. I think it's very relevant. When this question happens to most parents, it's also about how do you tell them age appropriately, right? So as a clinical psychologist, what would you recommend in terms of how you have that conversation?
So I think there's nothing like an age when you start. It depends a lot on what does your child ask when. So you need to be an askable parent. So it's important as a parent that we listen to what they know first.
Okay.
And then we stick to the facts without making it too graphic. And we'll limit it. We weave it around the story, around the song, but we tell them what it is without trying to mince words really around it.
Do you think it's actually sometimes the fault of us as parents? All of you have young kids. I'm sure sorry, I'm saying this on television, but I'm sure things like potty, kakka, susu, do they get very popular in your house?
Yes.
But why is that? Why? I mean, I don't think parents don't say the word, or how do they know that something is?
I think that's a function of just the reactions. I think it's the reactions.
So it's our fault.
Probably, because the minute they say a word like that, you're like, oh. Yeah. And I think that really triggers, oh man, that was fun. Let's do that again. Yeah. And then there are songs about diarrhea, so which is, really okay.
Yeah. But what's up with that? So is it us parents who have
probably,
to honestly have a poker face and absolutely not react?
Yeah, it's not funny anymore. Okay.
Having a community of moms, do you find a lot of people asking that, oh, my child has asked this, now I don't know what to do?
Well, first and foremost, it's very important to educate the parent. Even the parent needs to know what the answer is. Fortunately, we host a lot of workshops, where we actually talk about prevention of child sexual abuse or about puberty. So we ensure that, the mothers themselves are empowered to give the right answer. Yeah. My daughter, she's 5+, but she exactly knows all the body parts by their actual name. I also strongly feel that if you don't know the right answer, it's okay. Just tell your child that, yes, I will give you an answer. Just give me some time. Let me come back to you. And speak to a sex educator, speak to a professional, speak to a Sonali, and, get the right and the appropriate answer.
But now going to something morbid, something like death. I remember again asking a psychologist or a friend, Dr. Zirak, I said, my father has passed. I'm very upset, and my kids were very close to him. what does one say? And I remember him saying to me, be honest. Tell them so that there's not this fear of death, which I think comes later in life.
Yes. With death, I think you need to address their fear. When we see anyone dying, it triggers a fear that my parents would also die. Even I can die. And I think second is, children don't realize that when someone has passed away, they're never going to come back to you. Also give them hope, like with terrorism. One sees, when there's an attack, wherever it is in the world, you need to tell them that there are the cops, there are healthy mechanisms, there are people who will always be there to take care of you. So you need to give them hope and a sense of community around these topics.
I totally agree with what you're saying, is that I actually find that sometimes that I derive the strength from the kids. Because I used to say, Nana's always in our heart. Once in a blue moon, if they see me upset, they'll say, but why are you sad? He's there in our heart.
So nicely phrased, Tara. I think there's a wonderful saying about how the best way to learn is to teach. And having the ability to have a open, easy, honest discussion about all of these themes, be it racism, terrorism, religion, politics, sex, will just knock down. Life is pretty simple. It's often society that makes it really complicated.
Absolutely.
So that status update needs to change from it's complicated to great in a really happy and open relationship.
Yeah, no, but I completely agree. And I think that that's where we learn from the kids.
I think also, as you said, we need to teach them or look for positive coping statements around death, like your children beautifully did. So what you said, they beautifully turned it around and said that, grandfather is in your heart, so he's still living. It's a positive coping statement.
That's a very good point. And I think that's where that open communication is just so important, so that kids know whatever it is that, if somebody's parents have separated, what does that mean? There's still love, there's still,
It's all about love eventually, like about homosexuality, you introduce it in the context of love. It's about two men loving each other, two women loving each other. It's not about the sex.
Yeah.
So, but you need to speak about it. Or even when parents are separating, I would say that even if you're getting divorced, tell it to the child together. Let his or her trust not get impacted in his parents, even if they are going to be living in two different houses.
What about something like bullying? Because I think that's something that a lot of children perhaps don't come as openly to talk about. Do you find that people complain about this, and how do they deal with it?
So my 5-year-old daughter, Sarah, she understands what bullying is. Why? Because it was taught in school. So I asked her whether if bullying is a good thing or a bad thing, and she said, no, Mama, it's not a good thing, because I would feel very bad if I do that to someone else. So obviously even I shouldn't do that. So I'm glad, there are a lot of sources now in terms of books, in terms of videos, in terms of a lot of things that have been taught in the school also, where the awareness is being made.
The bullying happens for children who are alone, who are the ones who are standing alone in corners, corridors, who don't have friends. If you teach your child empathy, your child is likely to protect someone from bullying. And if you have a bystander, you have somebody on your side, the bully doesn't have the power.
It's great advice. So on that note, if there's anything you guys would like to say to our viewers when it comes to talking about so-called taboo topics, whether we should actually eradicate the word taboo because everything should be open discussion.
I think the first thing is that, listen to them. Be aware of what they are watching. And if they have something to ask or they're looking at you for an answer, learn to manage your anxiety first.
And Ashish, what would you like to say?
Research tells us that there's a direct and clear correlation between parents having the talk with safer sexual behavior with children. So listen in. If they're old enough to ask, they're old enough to know.
Yeah.
It is not a taboo topic.
Absolutely.
So open up, go watch Sex Chat with Pappu and Papa. That's a great start.
Yeah.
And there's many other themes that we should be talking about.
Absolutely. Completely agree. And Ritu, is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers?
Don't get into the thing of log kya kahenge rog. Be as open as a communicator with your child and speak the truth.
Thank you. That's all great advice. I think all of you have been really helpful, and hopefully any of our viewers who may be grappling with this whole question of what to say when, are there taboo topics, hopefully would have been helped by this chat. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, a story of an inspirational woman who talks about how her mother shielded her from some harsh realities in their life.
My mom always was a shield and she definitely protected me from those things affecting me. But the things were happening in front of my eyes.
And a tete-a-tete with a dear friend Ingrid Stellmacher, who talks about how in some cultures, seemingly basic things like a girl child's education and the right to go to the toilet and sanitation can be seen as taboo.
One of the basic human health rights must be the right to go to the toilet in safety and to have the honour to go and do it in private and to feel safe.
Sometimes so-called taboo topics are hidden from children, not just because they're awkward to share, but sometimes to protect the child. We met an inspirational woman who's achieved a lot. She's traveled the world, she's a hypoglot, she speaks 27 languages. But she grew up in a very tense environment where a secret was kept from her for her own benefit. Today we're meeting a wonderful guest, a very inspirational woman, Professor Amrita Joshi. She's had a very troubled childhood where she witnessed her mother being the victim of domestic violence by her father. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you for inviting me.
So going back in time to when you were little, what was it like at home? And when did you start noticing that something was amiss between your parents?
My mom, she didn't really talk to me about this because I was very small for that. But the things were happening in front of my eyes. She did hide her tears. She never raised her voice, is what I observed. And I have sensed that whatever was happening at my house and whatever happens at the other kids' homes is not same. And there's something wrong.
Really?
So why was it happening in my house? I didn't have an answer for that. My mom always was a shield and she definitely protected me from those things affecting me.
But were your parents cordial at times?
No,
were they not at all?
never. Because there were drinking issues with him. I mean, you know, there are some humans who are really horrible and he was a terrible guy. That's all I can say.
My gosh, that's quite something. And it's quite a strong statement coming from a daughter.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at that age, it must have seemed very odd that you didn't have that father figure that you were sort of
but I was
idolizing.
lucky to have my mom's dad. He was a father figure to me. And whatever I am today, it's because of him and my mom, because they have raised me.
That's quite amazing. I'm
Yeah.
sure she's a very commendable and strong woman.
Yes.
But the actual conversation about what had happened at home about
Yeah.
your father beating your mother,
Yes.
did you ever ask her point blank about that? Or did it continue to be a sort of taboo topic that you didn't address at home?
We did talk about it. She
Yeah.
was a homemaker, she was a fabulous mother, and she was working. But sadly, on the home front, she was not strong enough. So when I was in 7th grade, that means you're around 11 years old, and obviously you understand a lot of things.
Yeah.
I asked her, like, why can't you just stop this? I mean, we can obviously walk out of it. We were living in my mom's house. It was not that if we were living with him or he was doing something for her. In fact, my mom was earning. So I don't know why my mom still kept mute.
Yeah.
It was just maybe societal pressure that log kya kahenge. And I used to always tell her, Mama, log kya kahenge? Log kuch to kahenge. Logo ka kaam hai kehna. But you have to just forget that and you're a strong woman. So just step out of it.
Yeah.
Perhaps, maybe, if she would have opened up, she could have come out of the situation, is what I feel now. But yeah, one thing she really emphasized is, because in such situations, most of the times the kids can get affected and in a really bad way.
Yeah.
So she used to always tell me, men are not bad. Fathers are not bad. Husbands are not bad. Some humans are horrible and it's irrespective of their gender or religion or caste or anything.
Yeah. So you didn't label them
Yes,
as
don't
something.
label them. Don't tag them under ये मर्द है तो ऐसे ही होगा. नहीं. It is never that way.
Yes, yes.
So that's a very good thing that she taught me. So, and maybe that's the reason today I'm happily married.
Yeah, with a beautiful son. So
Yes.
I think it's commendable. So did your mom ever seek outside help, whether it was the police or anything like that?
No one. For the outside world, it was a perfect marriage.
Really?
She tried to portray it. Again, people observe, people see things.
Yeah.
You try to hide a lot of things, but sab kuch nahi छिपा सकते आप.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. You've turned out so amazingly. And I think, it's really important, I think, to have these kind of conversations for the simple reason that you, of course, have the confidence to speak.
Yes.
But there are probably lots of people who don't. And that's why shows like this is actually to share these
Definitely.
stories so that
Absolutely.
people may relate, may agree to disagree.
Correct.
And, I think you've been very brave and your mother's been very brave to share this story. Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers? Any tips that you'd like to give anyone who may be going through tough times, not sure whether to talk to their kids, not talk to their kids about it? Or do you think it would be better to shield them from it?
Definitely shield them up to a certain age. See, the child is always observing.
Yes, they know much
Yes.
more than you think.
Yes, absolutely. But when to talk to them is, again, if they are at a certain age, they might understand you better and they will understand the situation. But don't be a victim. Raise your voice against the wrong things which are happening. And I strongly feel if such issues are talked about more openly, I think we can resolve them. And don't be scared or don't bother. People are going to talk no matter what you do.
I think that's wonderful advice.
Yes.
As long as you're not harming anyone, I think you shouldn't be so, hung up about what will this
Yeah,
one say
shouldn't
or
be
that one
hesitant
say.
about
As long as
talking
you're,
about it. Correct.
exactly. I think that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Amrita, for
Thank
being
you.
on the show. It's been
Thank
a
you,
real
Tara.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Coming up, a chat with a dear friend who recently spoke at the UN, calling to redefine dignity and honor, and did a wonderful interview with Malala's father on the subject.
I interviewed Malala's father, and I have interviewed a lot of men on the issues of dignity and honour, that they have actually been impacted, and where they begin to think, well, should I behave differently? Do I have the courage to behave differently?
There are many cultures and societies where seemingly basic things like a girl child's education or the right to go to the toilet and sanitation are seen as taboo topics and are not openly discussed. I met a dear friend, Ingrid Stellmacher, who recently spoke at the UN, calling to redefine dignity and honor. She also did a wonderful interview with Malala's father, Ziauddin Yousafzai, who spoke about how proud he is of his daughter Malala, who stood up against those who tried to silence her for simply being a girl and wanting to pursue an education. So Ingrid, you were one of the first people to interview Malala's father, and he speaks in that interview about how false dignity is often a cause of so much injustice, including what happened to Malala. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
I interviewed Malala's father, and I have interviewed a lot of men on the issues of dignity and honour, that they have actually been impacted. Because if you're on a platform talking to men and really wanting to stimulate a conversation where they begin to think, well, should I behave differently? Do I have the courage to behave differently? Because there's an implicit element of fear in this. If I don't behave in the way that's expected, what will happen to me? So Malala's father, Ziauddin, was one of the people I interviewed.
As a boy, I was bullied when I was a child. Fortunately, my response was very positive. I did not like discrimination for myself in any way. So I disliked and I hated discrimination with women and girls. In that scenario, I encouraged my school children, speak up, speak. Your lips are free, your tongues are free. I encouraged my wife to go to market and buy clothes for me and for my children, for herself. Many men will think it a coward act, and they will not recommend it. They will say no to something against bravery and against honor. People ask me, what did special I do for my daughter? That she is an amazing young lady. I usually tell them, don't ask me what I did for her. Ask me what I did not do. I did not clip the wings of my daughter in the name of honor and dignity. I let her free to pursue her education. I let her free to pursue the happiness of life, which is her right, which is not my kindness. Honor is not in imprisonment of people. Honor is to be free.
He hadn't really thought about the role that dignity and honour had played in the shooting of his daughter. Education, of course, is like lifting a veil from somebody's eyes. When you know something, you can't unknow it.
Coming to the education of the girl child, apparently up to 1 million girls or more actually have to walk 5 kilometers to get to a toilet, and consequently a lot of them don't go to school and they don't have their education because they don't have the dignity of just being able to use a loo.
One of the basic human health rights must be the right to go to the toilet in safety, and not just safety from interference from other people, but to have the honour to go and do it in private and to feel safe. So it's such a basic thing and such a basic right, but until people are aware of it with regarding to schools, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah.
But if you haven't thought about it,
That's true.
you wouldn't know. There's a Muslim saying that a mother's lap is a child's first schoolroom. The more we educate our mothers, our women, our young girls, the better the schoolroom will be. Why any country or any culture would limit 50% of its population to not working or not being educated when it affects the generations going forward?
You mentioned a very interesting Muslim saying where a mother's lap is a child's first classroom. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to say, and it actually makes one wonder, apart from education at a grassroots level for all children at a very young age, isn't it also about educating parents? Because they, after all, are the child's first teacher.
If you ask adults what they want, they'll say, I want a bigger car or more money or this or that. But if you ask them what their values are, they sometimes find that quite difficult to articulate. And therefore, you have to instill in your children, what are your values?
Yes.
And try and have a conversation with them about what they value.
It makes me realize that these two words, dignity and honor, I've been reintroduced to through you, because as you said, they're intangible, so you don't often define them, but it's something I'm definitely going to talk to my kids about now. I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope our audience has enjoyed this too. So really, Ingrid, thank you so much. It's been so interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. We all want what's best for our kids, and often open channels of age-appropriate communication can help. But if you do find yourself in a situation where you're finding it difficult to talk to your kids about something, or if kids are finding it difficult to talk to their parents, you can always seek advice or get professional guidance. To interact with me, do write in to our social media handles, and for latest updates, do log on to our website. Till we meet again, bye-bye. Next week, we meet the gorgeous couple Dia Mirza and Sahil Sanga to talk about environmental issues and how kids inspire us to bring about positive change.
Nature is the kindler of conscience.
Yeah.
So stop thinking of what more you want.
Yeah.
Think of how much less
You can do with. And Power with interesting individuals brings to light ways in which each of us can make a difference in saving the environment.
Behave like a miser. You can afford to have 4 cars. Doesn't mean that you should be having it.
Let's not think about will this save the planet or not. Let's just do what we have to do.
It was our kids who insisted we do this episode on saving the earth.
Tell people not to kill animals and not to chop trees and to pick up garbage on the road and not to throw garbage on the road.